Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special afternoon edition of Halsey Live. I've got a new guest. Chanale from Israel is on the line. We're going to be talking a whole bunch of fun stuff. Hopefully, how you doing today?
Well, it's not today, it's tonight because we're 7 hours ahead, but I'm doing well.
I guess that's true. Well, it might as well be tonight over here. So, before we get started, is there any social media or anything you want to let everybody know where to follow you, where to find you?
Weekly Squeeze podcast, that's great. And I'm on Twitter, Chanale Music.
Very nice. So are you a musician or are you a political commentator first?
First musician. Well, I'm not even a musician, actually. I'm a self-trained creative. I grew up musical. I made the most of my talents. And now that I'm a grown-up with 4 kids, I'm spending a little more time just voicing my political opinions and not being confined to the realms of Kol Isha, because I used to sing for only women. So now I can speak for everyone. So, l'chaim.
That's a little weird. So you can sing only in front of women, but you can speak in front of anybody. I never even thought of it like that.
Well, it's not weird if you understand why women don't sing in front of men or why men don't listen to women sing according to Jewish law.
I mean, as far as I know,
Because
it's a form of nakedness.
essentially it's a very intimate part of a woman. And I could say as a singer that I know that to be true. Like I've sung for crowds and many times. And I know what I'm sharing of myself, and I can't even imagine singing for men, actually. So I understand why that halacha is there, why that Jewish law is said.
Hmm.
Um, but speaking is a different animal. I mean, speaking, even for myself, like when I write songs, I use one of my creative, uh, you know, capacities. And then when I record my podcast and share my opinions, I use another one of my creative, albeit a little more controversial, but still capacities. So for me, it's an expression of myself, but it's not like singing. It's a different experience. And yeah, things have gotten really heated really fast.
They
It's
really
been
have.
only, yeah, it's been 9 months since I started my show, and I had a tweet go completely viral last week. It has like 1.4 million views, like crazy. And it was on Al Jazeera.
Al
It was like a
Jazeera.
featured, yeah, my tweet that went viral, it was a featured tweet on Al Jazeera. They commented on it that it went viral, my opinion,
I'm sure they
which we can
also
discuss.
commented a couple more things that they probably weren't as complimentary.
And well, it was fine. I live in Israel. I'm literally surrounded by terrorists. I'm not scared of a little Al Jazeera anchor woman.
So, what got you into this? I saw. Did you have Laura Loomer on recently?
I did.
We already got our first Palestinian troll in. We'll get rid of this person.
Nice.
Sorry, I don't censor on my channel unless a very simple rule: don't be a dick.
Except terrorists.
No, just don't be a
Except
dick.
terrorists.
It's that simple. Don't be an asshole, and I'll let you.
Ah,
You can say whatever you want on here.
gonna hang out. So
But
yeah, I had Laura Loomer, the free speech absolutist, and I gave her a piece of my mind. First, I let her say her piece, and she's right on pretty much everything. But
mhm.
then I just told her a little parable before I left, and I said, "Listen, Laura, there was once a Sephardi woman and an Ashkenazi woman, and the Sephardi woman wanted to make cholent. So she went to the Ashkenazi. She said, "How do I make the kishke in your cholent? That's it makes the cholent, so delicious." I mean, do we have time for this parable?
Sure.
So the Ashkenazi tells the Sephardi woman, "Go get a kishke, go get the actual intestines, and you're
Hmm.
going to stuff it with flour and eggs and oil and spices. You're going to twist it on both sides, put it in the pot. You're going to have the most delicious cholent tomorrow." And that's what she did. And then the next day, when she opened the pot, a very foul, shitty smell came out of the pot. And she was hysterical. And she went back to the Ashkenazi woman. She said, "What did I do wrong?" And she said, "Well, did you, essentially, she has to clean the intestines before she stuffs them. Like common sense. Like at some point, you just have to have common sense."
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to Laura that I understand that she's friends with Nick Fuentes and people, all these shady anti-Semitic people. But when you are an anti-Semite, it just stinks up everything you do. So these people lose all their value. And it's really hard for me. And I was trying to basically convey that to her. Like, I can't make that work for me. Your free speech absolutism, your advocacy, and your capacity to put that before your religion, your values, your Judaism. It's like, I don't know, didn't work for me.
I have a very love-hate relationship with Laura Loomer because when I first got started on Twitter and on for my channel and all of that, it was her that got me to lose my first Twitter account. And I only recently got it back. That this is the one that she got taken away. And it was over like a stupid prank. And it's funny because over the years I find she really follows some stories that need to be told. But at the same time, she really does take, like, I'm a free speech absolutist. I believe everybody should say whatever the heck they want, but I'm not saying that speech should be free of consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because someone has something to say doesn't mean I have to amplify it, or I have to listen to it, or I have to agree with it.
And not only that, you could stick your fingers in your ears and just go la 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 la, not even let them get a word in edgewise.
Right.
Like that's your free speech.
Listen, I've had conversations with every member of the alt-right there probably is. I've talked to Nick Fuentes probably a dozen times.
Stop it.
Yeah, I debated him. That was the first debate I ever had was Nick Fuentes.
Stop it.
Hmm.
I don't even want, I'll tell you the truth. I don't even want to talk about him because he's not even worth my while. It's like I have so many other things in this world to talk about besides him.
I
He's
hear
just a
you.
weasel, just completely insignificant.
It's
Just another fly amongst the flies surrounding the shit.
you have to understand that he does have some influence. So there's a value to debunking what he says as opposed to just ignoring it.
Does he want to hear? They don't
You'd
want
be
to hear. They don't want
surprised.
to hear.
You'd be surprised.
You think you could transform a Nazi? I don't. You ever read Tuvia Tenenbaum's books?
Huh?
You ever read Tuvia Tenenbaum's books?
No,
Catch
I
a
have
Jew?
not.
All right. So Tuvia Tenenbaum is a journalist, and he's an Israeli, and then his parents moved to Germany, and he ends up living in Berlin, and he's an Israeli though, and he spends a lot of time as a journalist, kind of undercover in Germany. Like he went to find out specifically how they still felt about anti-Semitism, and like there's still a bunch of raging anti-Semites.
I mean, there's going to be anti-Semites anywhere, but I hear you.
No, I'm saying, but Germany, I'm saying, is still. Um, the point is that I don't know. I just, I can't. There's only so much a person could take. But you're. I mean, I'm happy that you're having conversations with them. If you say
Oh, I
it's
haven't spoken
worthwhile,
to him in at least 2 or 3 years. It's been a while.
your
But
jaw didn't drop when you saw him with Kanye.
when I saw him with Kanye, like I mean, at this point in my life and in my opinion of what's going on Twitter, like and social media in general, I think him being with Kanye is probably the most logical thing that I could ever imagine. I mean, the guy is just as much of a quack. Wow, the Free Palestine people are really here for you. Um, the guy is a quack. He's a complete quack, and to see Fuentes kind of jump on that bandwagon really doesn't shock me.
One second,
So
are there Palestinians in here and Arab supporters and Muslim supporters? Look, you see that? That's the map of Israel behind me. That entire land belongs to the Jewish people. That
I
would be me.
I
That
wouldn't
would be
disagree with that
me.
statement at all. I
If you
don't.
don't like it, lump it. And we could get into that if you want. I'll tell you the truth. Can I be completely honest before we even
Feel free.
um, get into that whole Palestinian issue? I am scared to say how I feel about the Palestinians because I am scared they will kill me because they're terrorists. And it sucks that we have to get into the shit with terrorists like pigs because they are pigs. And the whole way they are fighting, using death as a weapon is so disgusting. It's like appalling. It's like beyond. I have no words, seriously. And the only reason that I can't express it in public, on Twitter, anywhere on social media, is because I'm afraid they're going to kill me. They'll find me and they'll kill me, and then I'll be dead. And then what? I'll be like Ari Fold.
I mean, do you
Revenge is
have that
blood.
legitimate fear?
Yeah.
Huh.
Why wouldn't I?
I think me personally, I was just when I lived in Israel for 11 years and a lot of time in the territories, a lot of time all over the place. But I never felt that fear. As I said, I think I was like functionally ignorant. It never bothered me. Like I was always the one when I moved there, the second intifada was like right in the middle of it. Buses were blowing up every day. And whenever I got on a bus, I still had on like headphones and I would like take naps on the bus and not even pay attention. It was, as I said, I was
Naive.
very ignorant, but at the same time, I didn't care that I was ignorant.
I know, but things have changed. You could see the tone on Twitter has changed, the aggression, the lies, the depth, that the distance people will go to make Israel and Jews look bad. I mean, it's just a whole nother level, it's just exponentially larger than it was when I was a kid growing up. So people are crazy. The world is full of crazies, and everybody can find out information about where everybody lives. Everything on social media. I live in Israel. I'm surrounded by terrorists. They're all on social media. A bunch of nuts around the world. And if you say something, they'll kill you because they're Arabs and that's what they do.
I mean, I would
So
be more. I wouldn't say scared, but I'd be more worried in Israel than I would here. I mean, here I'm armed to the teeth, so
okay.
I don't have any kind of fear of that kind of stuff.
I'm also armed to the teeth. The IDF works for me. My
Like,
taxes pay for it, but still.
no, I mean, I'm personally I'm armed to the teeth. I mean, I have a pretty nice gun collection, so and I'm never unarmed. And I always had a very big problem in Israel with that not being the case. I mean, there was a couple people I worked with, like trying to actually get to the Knesset and talk to them about relaxing gun laws to let people be more in charge of their own self defense.
Yeah,
But
but I was discussing this with my father today, and I was explaining to him all the reasons that could go terribly wrong.
well, I could think of just one of the easiest one is that in a country that values equality, which Israel claims to do, I don't know why, but they do. They would have to arm Arabs. That there would be.
No, that's not the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is simply that there'd be too many guns and and Arabs would have more access to them.
Mhm.
Oh, and that's, I mean, as far as equality goes, the Arabs have guns. Like, who are we kidding? Like, the whole thing, that's bogus. I mean, I don't know. I really never thought about it that way. I don't think that's the issue. I think Israel could give out more guns to who they want to, and tough shit if you're an Arab if you don't get your license. Tough shit.
I
You have a
agree.
reputation. You have reputations of being terrorists. You don't get a gun license. None of you Arabs get gun licenses. Nobody. Not even if you're in the Knesset. Sorry, Arabs kill Jews with weapons, so we're not giving you weapons.
You see, I agree with you, and the problem is that I agree in principle, but I'm also a realist as to what will happen. Like I would say that I would even say they have any right to be there at all. So I have no issue with the idea of booting them all out in the first place. But in the end of the day, I know that reality is going to trump idealism in Israel. So I know that the more that you try to push, the more you try to push a kind of idealistic law in Israel, the more it's going to be co-opted the second that your party is not in power.
True, but also it's really hard to know with this government because they say one thing. It's obviously a country that has a lot of military secrets and things happening that we don't know about.
Sure.
We're dealing with terrorism and counterterrorism. So who knows exactly what the government actually plans? And, Israel plays by its own rules. So the question is, what's next? What's going to unfold? And I look at it and I'm like, we could analyze it 50 different ways. The reality is, the facts on the ground is that there are tens of thousands, 20, 30, 50, 100,000, 100,000, let's say, militarized, young, disenfranchised, angry, violent, bloodthirsty young men surrounding Israel. And it's only getting worse every year. And we're already second generation. So these kids were raised on hate, raised on bloodshed, raised on terrorism, and raised on the lie that Israel, for some reason, belongs to them. I'm like, well, you little fuckers, seriously. We came to Tel Aviv. The whole place was full of malaria and mosquitoes, and you were sitting in your fucking tents with your camels doing nothing. The whole thing is mental. And I read this in Golda Meir's memoir, which I've read many times. She says very clearly, a lot of Arabs became rich when the Jews came to the land. They needed
Sure.
workers. I spoke to Walter Bingham. The guy's 99 years old. He's like, all these guys came to Israel because there was work here. They built Tel Aviv with Arab workers. What's wrong with that? They're refugees. They should be grateful. Seriously, a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, but you know what though? That story has played itself out 1,000 times across the globe. That Group A comes to certain land, hires Group B as menial workers. Group B decides land is theirs, and world agrees with Group B. Like that's happened in South Africa. It's happened all over Africa, to tell
Oh,
you the truth.
come on. Everyone knows that Israel belongs to the Jewish people. It says it in the Bible. The Bible precedes Christianity and precedes Islam.
Oh, you're
Everyone
preaching to the
knows.
choir. I agree with you,
Okay,
but
but
convincing me is not difficult. So, it's
I don't understand how people could be so stupid. I don't understand how all these lefty wokest retards don't see that they're sympathizing with a bunch of bloodthirsty camel riding desert people and they're pitting them against the Jews. And the Jews, everyone knows the Jews are just, amazing. It's like I want to scream it from the rooftops. You can't say we're awesome because then you are what are they called when you knew like when you're a supremacist, like a Jewish
a Jewish supremacist.
Yeah, but that's not the word. Well, you think you're better than everyone else. You can't do that, and you can't express anger because then you're a terrorist, and there's just no way to win. It's like ridiculous. I don't know. I get so worked up. Honestly, that's like, and it's all because these stupid Palestinians that can't get their acts together.
But the question is, what if they could? Like, are you willing to see that if they could get their acts together, let's say they became completely compliant with anything Israel wanted tomorrow, there was no more terrorism, they were complete disarmament, would you then be comfortable giving them what they're asking for?
Listen, trust has to be built. They have broken our trust with them so many times. Like you'd have to be retarded to be like, sure, you be all no violence for 30 days. You all become citizens, a year, whatever it is.
No, but I'll go a step farther. Let's say it's 10 years. Let's say it's 15 years. Let's say they've fulfilled everything that would require for you to actually feel a level of trust with them.
For 15 years? Yeah. Mm-hmm. By all means, whatever it might be. You think I care what they're doing over there? Let them pray the whole day long. Let them hang people up in the streets. I don't care what they do over there. Just leave my children alone. Don't grope them. Don't rape them. Don't marry them. Don't kidnap them. Don't blow them up. Don't stab them in their beds. Don't murder their fathers with axes. Don't blow them up on buses. Just stop it. Just stop being terrorists. And then you could do whatever the hell you want. I don't care if you have a freaking gay parade over there.
But you see, that's my problem. Is I wouldn't care what they did. I still don't give their claims any validity. So, like, I don't care if they were the most compliant, trustworthy, nonviolent population ever to exist on the planet for the next 50 years. If they
still don't get Israel. They still don't get Israel.
But they don't get anything, as far as I'm concerned. Anything that they're asking for, they don't get.
And meanwhile, the whole world is sympathizing with them, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm in like the Matrix. I don't understand. Like what? Like the whole world is gaslighting the Jews. It's crazy.
I mean, it's not even that, but I don't think it's a gaslighting the Jews thing. I mean, if you look at it, they're doing the same thing to every population throughout the world. If there's a minority that they can consider oppressed, they take their side against what they consider the oppressor, no matter what. And it's not that they don't realize it. They fully realize it. They just don't care.
But there's a lot of weapons over here. What are they, stupid? Look how many weapons. You're enabling a military of militants to militarize against innocent Jewish children. Like, what's wrong with people?
But
how
they
low
did it
can
in
you
South
go?
Africa. They did it in South Africa and didn't care. South Africa was on the verge of nuclear weapons. South Africa had a fully functioning army. They had a fully functioning society, and they just basically made them turn it over. And since then, it's been hell for those people that stayed there.
I don't know the history of South Africa. I'm not going to lie. I really don't. I was there once, and it was great, and that's it. I don't know.
No, but what I'm saying though is that using an argument of logic in this situation, or using an argument of don't they see what they're doing? Yes, they do. That's the problem. They do see what they're doing. All these people see what they're doing. They just don't care. And in realizing that, it means you have to formulate your own policies, your own everything, based on, yes, they realize what they're doing. Yes, they realize people will get killed. Yes, they realize that they're going against one group and not another. But in the end of the day, they don't care. So if they
But
don't
what
care, how do you formulate a policy that's good for your people and no and not give a shit what they have to say?
the woke people are also terrorists if that's the case.
Hmm?
Woke people are also terrorists if that's the case.
I mean, how would you argue otherwise? That's I think that is a point blank honest statement regardless. Look what happens even
Yeah.
in the States. They don't get what they want. They burn down cities. They
Yeah.
attack police officers. They kill people they disagree with politically. They use the power of the government to throw people in jail for years and years without trial because they feel like it. So
Yeah.
when you look at people like this and you realize they have more in common with the Palestinians than they do with either Republicans, Israelis, or anyone kind of to the right of Mao Zedong, once you realize that this is what you're dealing with, you can start looking at policy in a way where you say, okay, things have to be made in a way that doesn't really care about these people, or what they think, or how we can find common ground, because we never will.
Well, I hope that Israel just does what's good for them and doesn't pay attention to what the world is saying. Like that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping like they're literally just like whatever. We're not going to let Israelis get killed no matter what it takes.
Hmm.
Because like when I go online and I read everything, I think, oh my God, is Israel going to have to be busy fighting all this? And then on the other hand, like maybe they're just ignoring Twitter and they're just taking care of what they need to take care of. It's hard to know.
It is. Oh, it's absolutely hard to know. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that when I was a kid, that Israel wasn't really a political issue in America because everybody was kind of on Israel's side.
Yeah, I
That's
know. I
but
know. It's like what happened? They flipped the script.
Well, it's not the case anymore. Basically, the left has completely abandoned Israel, and the right, you have this kind of half of the right which are wacky Christian Zionists that seem to support Israel to the point of almost,
Idolatry.
yeah, and it's creepy. Like it's creepy how they're more obsessed with Israel and Israel's well-being than it seems Jews are.
Totally. Right.
And
There's
the other
something
half who
that's
thinks
yeah.
that Israel has too much influence over U.S. policy. So
Hmm.
it's like kind of where you are right now, and it's really hard to just give the answer of why won't you just leave us alone? Like why can't we just be left alone?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. The question, I think about it all the time. I'm listening to Why the Jews by Dennis Prager and Joseph Telushkin. I love Joseph Telushkin. I just finished one of his audiobooks. It took me like 27 hours. All about Judaism and stuff. But I'm listening to it and they're just going through all the reasons. And one of the things that they say is that at the end of the day, it is a religious war. And, you know, that's something that, I also think about being a religious Jew. So all those implications and it's very loaded, honestly. I could talk about it for hours, but
My
it's up to
biggest
you where
issue
you
that
want
I
to.
had living in Israel is that I don't feel like it's a religious war just between Israel and the Arabs. I feel like it's a religious war in Israel versus Israel. Like, I
How
mean,
so?
when you have gay pride parades marching through the center of Jerusalem, when you have the idea that you would recognize gay marriage or transvestitism or any of this stuff in what's supposed to be a Jewish government, then it's a religious battle over what is the soul of our country. Is our country a degenerate, kind of free for all that values equality over anything, or is it something that values Jewish values over Western weird secular values? That it's a real issue, and it's
It's a
an
real listen, it's a balance. It's just I'm very much I'm passionate about certain things. I have a big mouth, but overall, I do believe that things work when you go middle of the road. So Israel, and I said this on my podcast. I said, listen, the no religious Jew believes that you can enforce Judaism by forcing it down people's throats. You can't just tell people in Tel Aviv to keep Shabbos because that's what the government wants.
right. I
On
agree
the
with
other
that.
hand, yeah, on the other hand, we are entitled to preserve the Jewish essence of the state of freaking Israel for the love of God and all things holy. And there's certain things we are going to fight for. And there has to be that balance. So I don't think any side is ever going to win. I think we have to compromise. And the good thing is that there's a lot of podcasts, a lot of conversations about accepting homosexuality. I mean, I feel like homosexuality has become like, when I was a kid, we used to whisper the word gay. We would whisper it if we ever said it 40 years ago. And now it's like, I'm listening to Scott Kahn on the Orthodox Conundrum. He's a modern Orthodox podcaster, and he's just talking about how, ethical Judaism and compassion and learning to, go beyond the halacha to understand that we have to love each other. Even homosexuals have a place in our communities. And I'm like, what are we arguing about if the basic stuff that's written down in the Bible are being completely ignored? Then what conversation are we having? What's the point of the conversation? Nothing matters.
I mean, that's the issue I tend to have over and over again, is that when I hear people say, okay, there's a room for gay pride in Orthodox Jewish circles, it's not okay when you have a kind of degenerate society that isn't ashamed or embarrassed of that degeneracy. Like, I could understand if they were like, I want to be an Orthodox Jew. I understand that I have a certain predilection that makes that difficult, but I'm trying to overcome that predilection, whatever it may be. When you acknowledge that it's against what says in the Bible and you're trying to get past it, it's one thing. But when you're like, no, I'm literally like, this is what I define my life by, this is everything that I am, and I want you to accept my type of lifestyle into your community, it becomes a completely different thing.
That's right. It becomes an agenda, and they want to be normalized, and you can't normalize something the Torah says is not okay. And that's it, and it's not fair to do that.
No.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I'm like being bombarded with so many things that lately I've been thinking about because of just where we're at on this conversation in Twitter and politics. It's just like been so intense. There's just so much going on, and the world is changing so quickly. I mean, this whole transgender thing, that's also like something I've even considered exploring at this point. And then my mother had to be like, you don't need to speak to someone who's transgender. You just don't need to. Just stick to who you are. You're a Chabad girl. Talk about things that are important. Don't try to, because I know I read a book of this Jewish guy that became a woman, and he was working for Yeshiva University, Joy Layden. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should bring her on my podcast. And then I was like, no, because homosexuality and transgenderism, there's too many halachic implications. And, there's too many things there that I don't know about enough that I should be speaking about it or bringing it to the attention of my listeners. I just don't know.
I personally don't either. I don't believe there's any compromise. I don't think that you can have a little transgenderism. I don't believe that you can have I believe that on most things. I don't believe you could have a little homosexuality. I don't even believe you could have a little feminism. I think you can have what is and what isn't. If you work within the confines of what is allowed, then it's very easy to find a way to work in what is allowed. But I think when you value the principles of something over what is right and true, that eventually your loyalty to those principles will override what's right and true, and you'll be asking what's right and true to bend to those philosophies. Like, I know plenty of people who, gosh, these Free Palestine people are really following you around.
That's not good. You see? These people creep me out.
Yeah,
How do they know I'm on with you?
Well, they probably saw it on Twitter. They're probably following you on Twitter.
That's nerve-wracking. I hate the Palestinians. I do. I'm sorry. They're terrorists. What do you want? Like, how they're not exactly likable. Seriously, and I have no problem. Listen, there's a guy named Amir. He delivers fruits and vegetables. He's a great guy. He's a great guy until he decides he wants to kill me. The day he decides he wants to kill me, he's not a great guy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have no issue with people. I just have issue with terrorists. Don't tell me that you want to kill me because you think that you should have my Beit Shemesh apartment. It's mine. I bought it. I don't know.
No, it is. I mean, that I agree with. I have an issue with quantifying them as terrorists. I look at them as just as an enemy. Like, I don't see them as like the rest of them are good and the terrorists are bad, and therefore we should be fighting against the terrorists. I think that puts them into an abstract that makes it too hard and too difficult to fight against what actually is the enemy. So I don't like saying like, okay, well they're a terrorist. Like they're not the norm, you
Right. And the
know?
enemy could also mean like a physical enemy and an intellectual enemy, and like on
Hmm.
every level. That's something that I could take away from this conversation. I like that.
It's something I felt all along because it when America went to war against terrorism after 9/11, right? There was no enemy. It was a concept. It was an ideal that we were going to war against, which is why it never ended. And that's why it cost trillions of dollars. And we left all of those areas the exact same as when we got there. Because we were fighting against an ideal, against a concept that didn't exist in reality. Like you can easily say Al Qaeda is the enemy. We're going to war against Al Qaeda. But that means you have to fight Al Qaeda. You're not fighting just the extremist Al Qaeda. You're not fighting just the ideals of Al Qaeda. You're fighting against them as a group, and you're not stopping until they've been beaten. You know, and it's the same thing with the Arabs in Israel. It's that it's sorry, someone just
Uh-oh.
put a funny comment in it. It says, "What I don't like about Israel is we gave them so much money, yet they haven't conquered the Middle East. I'm disappointed and want nothing to do with Israel anymore."
Well, we're preoccupied. We're
Mhm.
preoccupied. We're literally just preoccupied. What Israel has done and could do, I mean, the sky's the limit. But 75% of the time, we're busy with terrorism. So, on top of that, it's just something that we have to, manage. And the world wants more. Oh my God, doing the best we can.
So you're getting asked by a few people, and I'm curious. Oh, here more fun people. Um, you're getting asked by a few people. What do you see about feminism creeping into Orthodox Judaism? Because it's been there for a long time now. But
Right.
I know we had a discussion about this in terms of erasing women's faces, which I don't consider a feminist ideal, by the way. I consider that just a normal thing. You shouldn't be covering up the faces of women in a magazine, for no reason. But then again, I'm kind of an absolutist on this. Like I don't think that they should be putting pictures of anybody. If they're going to say you can't put pictures of women, then you can't put pictures of men. If you can put pictures of both, you can put pictures of both.
Yeah, and I thought I say that also. Like if the woman's face is not necessary for the story, then why is the man's? And if the man's face is necessary for the story, then put the woman's.
Hmm. I mean, the one argument I've heard made is one that I find the least valid is people go, well, let's say I'm a real estate broker and I want to put my face on, my advertisement saying, come work with me. And then people will be able to see it and know who I am and blah, 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 blah. I find that to be the least valid argument because it's almost like, well, if you're using your face, if you're using your sex, if you're using your body to sell a product, you're literally doing exactly what they're trying to stop you from doing.
That's a very good point. I like that. So I have a thing where I say it's from women have faces, not from women in your faces. I don't think from women should be in anyone's faces. I love the concept of modesty. I'm not a feminist in that sense at all. But like you, I'm just a humanist. Like you don't blur out women's faces. It's just the whole thing is creepy and weird and disgraceful. You know what I mean? So as far as feminism goes, listen, I'm very good friends. Maybe with maybe this was a chess move, but I am very good friends with Adina Flatbush Girl and
Hmm.
Shoshana Kitchaskal, who
I know
is
her.
the face. Yeah, we're good friends, and I run my ideas past them. But the truth is, this was only a recent. I've developed my opinions already over the last 20 years, but in the last few months, I've connected with these women, the feminists,
Hmm.
and I've voiced my opinion when I thought things were too much, or I've pulled away when I thought things were, not my jam. And many times there aren't. The only thing we have in common is the not erasing women. But I've spoken up, and obviously agunas, it's always a good thing. But I say time and time again, Jewish women or modesty in general is a very important part of our religion, and it's a very delicate um it's a very delicate dance,
Hmm.
and nobody, and as a community, we're going to struggle to figure it out. But what I do know for sure is that Jewish women shouldn't be flaunting themselves or sharing their bodies or being too revealing. And as the world changes, we have to adapt and see what works for us. But from women on the front of magazines, that's just never going to work. I don't
Mm-mm.
believe in that. I don't believe in that. I don't think we need it. I think the Torah knows better than anyone what women want. Women don't need that. And if you need that, well, there's Julia Hart. Go for it. Look
I
how that turned out.
I don't know why I'm getting an alert that Zoom is gonna kick me off in
Yeah,
2 minutes.
you're gonna have to start a new meeting.
Am I really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
You want to?
we'll take a quick break, and I'm just gonna start a new one, and we'll get going right away. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you a new link right now.
Excellent. Hello. Someone wrote, "I'm such a lame guest." Well, how do you not be like? How can I be a not lame guest? Like, what do you guys want to talk about? Seriously, go ahead, ask me anything. Just getting started. Right. Listen, I grew up in Miami Beach, Florida. I never ever thought about Palestinians. I never ever thought about Arabs. The closest I thought about Arabs was my Ashkenazi Lubavitch cousin married a Yemenite girl. My grandmother used to call her the Arabke, the Arabke. And then I make Aliyah 5 years ago, and it's just like ridiculous, like what's going on here. I'm living here and I'm seeing it and I'm watching it, and I remember like the missiles flying and thinking like, wow, they're giving them a 4-hour break so they could bring gas and resources into Gaza. Like, we are so exceptional, Israel. And before the gate even closed, they were already shooting missiles again. That's like they're so ungrateful. And I tweeted this and the tweet went viral. And the reason the tweet went viral is because it's true. And then we can move on to something else. But it is true because and I think people really specifically misinterpreted it, because I wrote like this. I said that the Palestinians should be thankful that it's the Jewish people of all people who are their occupiers. Any other nation would have destroyed them a long time ago. They would not put up with the shit, including America. And the Jews don't. Not because we want to be busy with this, but because we are gentle, and they know it. They know it. Imagine that Putin ran the show here. They'd be finished. You think if they killed 8 Russians because coming out of a Greek Orthodox church, Putin would put up with this shit?
No, I don't. But then again, I don't know why Israel puts up with any of it at all. So
Why? I don't know why. Because
I can't tell. I can't tell why Israel allows itself to argue this like moral army garbage. I mean, what is a moral army like? How do you morally fight a war? A war is a war. Like, you're killing lots of people. That's the whole purpose of a war. I don't understand how you morally kill people.
100%. And also the whole idea that, there's pictures of Israeli soldiers dragging kids. It's a freaking war zone. You guys are a freaking war zone. What do you think? We're gonna have pictures of Israelis smiling? Like, who the hell wants to deal with terrorism day in and day out? and a bunch of little mini terrorists running around like little the ankle biters.
Yep.
The whole thing is it sucks. But I don't know I don't know how this is gonna. Who knows? Anyways,
I mean, what do you guys think over there? I haven't asked many people. What do you guys think over there? What's going on with Russia and the Ukraine?
um, what I understand is like this. Alan Dershowitz actually put it the best. He was like, "Why the hell should Israel give Ukraine an Iron Dome, which is something that Russia could easily get their hands on, and that's a game changer for the world." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just stupid. And second of all, Ukraine, with all due respect to Mr. Zelensky, is soaked with Jewish blood. Soaked with Jewish blood. There's still a statue of Khmelnytsky. And if you ever read the accounts of the Khmelnytsky pogroms, they were beyond the pale. They were like Holocaust-like stories. Just the torture and disgusting things they did to the Jewish people. They tried to destroy them. It was awful. And there's a statue of him. So the point is that I understand Ukraine's having a war, but Zelensky should come to Israel and act all like sanctimonious and indignant that we're not giving him weapons. Like, no, that's not the way it works. I don't know. The whole thing rubbed me the wrong way, and I trust Israel's decision, what they give him and how they give him. As far as America goes, I don't know. It's a different kind of stupid.
I mean, look, I'm probably like, I'm not a fan of Putin. I'm not a fan against Putin, but to tell you the truth, like, if you told me tomorrow he went in and burned Ukraine to the ground, I could literally care less. Like, I mean, all I would say is couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. I mean, the weirdest part about it is ever since this whole thing started, like, we've somehow made Nazis okay again. Like, half of the Ukrainian forces are actual Nazis. Like, not just like
Oh yeah,
Nick Fuentes, like, kind of pretend Nazis. Like,
actual Nazis.
like, yeah, like actual SS tattooed Nazis. And
You got to read this book. You got to read the book by Tuvia Tenenbaum. I'll send you a link.
mm-hmm.
I slept in Hitler's room. The guy's a journalist. I told you, I was talking about him before. He's a German Jewish journalist, and he goes to Germany undercover, and he reveals that Nazism is alive and well, and the Germans still hate the Jewish people. So I don't know. It's just the stuff is like deep.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks having certain opinions, but that's just the way that it is. Like, I mean, from day one with the whole Russia Ukraine thing, like, I really didn't care even then. Like, people were like, oh, he's a war of aggression against the Ukrainian people, and Ukraine is this paragon of democracy. Like, right out of Europe, nope, could care less. Like,
But why don't you care? Where do you care? Let's put it this way. Where do you care?
where do I care about what?
I don't know. Two countries at war that you're like sympathetic to one.
I'm sympathetic towards Israel versus the Arabs. I'm sympathetic
Okay.
on plenty of. I can't really think of any conflicts that are going on right now that I do care about.
North Korea, South Korea.
I mean, I'm against North Korea just because North Korea is communist evil.
Right.
But it's if they decided to start scrapping with each other to the end of, I mean, to the truth of it, I could really don't care. Like, I mean, there's nothing that I have to my opinion is completely irrelevant to what happens between North Korea and South Korea. Like, South
Okay.
Korea doesn't hold any kind of value that I need to have, and North Korea doesn't have any value that I care if it expands. Like, if they decided to go, like, personally, I think if they decided to go to war, I think South Korea would win anyway. But
Mhm.
if they didn't, like, the idea that we would send American troops or Israeli troops or anyone else over to defend South Korea, that I probably have a bit of a
Right.
problem with.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. I totally hear that. I don't know. Like America, I'm kind of listening to what's going on in America. I don't know if you want to talk about American politics.
Sure.
But first of all, yeah, I mean, I saw Trump today. He was in a restaurant and somebody gave him a blessing and everybody was excited. And then somebody tweeted, Trump's going to be the next president. And I was just like, really? You think so?
Well,
And,
there's a
I
lot
was
of
such,
delusional people out there, so you have to give them a bit of a break.
I don't know. I was such a Trump enthusiast. I literally lost my vision. I started wearing reading glasses during the 2016 election because I was on Twitter 24 hours a day. I was so caught up of whether he was going to win or not. I stayed up that whole night. It was completely consuming. I stopped speaking to one of my one brother who went to Harvard. So you can imagine that relationship politically. And it just completely consumed me. And now it's just like I don't know. He just lost he really disappointed me one too many times. That's the truth.
I
At this
don't
point,
think
I just lost respect for him.
it's not that he disappointed me. I mean, I've been criticizing. Listen, I was the same exact way in 2016, but after 2017, 2018, I started to really kind of lose heart, and I'm at the point right now. Like, I think that Trump could have done a lot of things that he didn't do. I thought he did plenty of good things, but in the end of the day, things got much worse for us. For whether it be me as a Jew, or me as an Orthodox Jew, me as a supporter of Israel, whatever it is, things got worse after Trump was done. He formulated an enemy on the other side that became far more emboldened and feared far less from the government.
He didn't bring people together, and that's what presidents are supposed to do. And we haven't had a president like that in a very long time.
No. And now I think people that are out there like, no, the nominee's got to be Trump. He's the only one that could beat Biden. We're past that. Like, they've already proven they're willing to cheat, and they will cheat to win elections. Like, this idea that, like, we just got to give them hell in the swing states, and don't worry, things will work out. No, they proved that not true in 2022.
I know, and it feels exhausting to even try, because you're like, what are we trying for? Like, this is baked in the cake. Like, the results are baked in the cake.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah, it's very disheartening. I don't know. I had this conversation with Alan Dershowitz 3 weeks ago. Okay, I get on the air with Alan Dershowitz, and I want to discuss God in the school system. Why? Because the Lubavitcher Rebbe thought or believed or shared or taught or whatever it was, that, or rallied, that there should be a moment of silence in public schools. So Alan Dershowitz is very against he's very for the separation of church and state. So I was kind of arguing if you can argue with Alan Dershowitz, but I was kind of saying, like, why did the Rebbe insist that this should be something done in school if you are so against it? He's like, absolutely, you do not have religion in school. It always ends bad. But I was like, how could that be if the Rebbe said that every single child should recognize that there's a God in the world? That should be like the fundamental thing that America teaches Americans. At the end of the day, it says, in God we trust on the dollar. And we have chaplains in the army, and the Congress, that says a prayer before they open. So there are elements in American society that are rooted in faith. So it's not like crazy to think that we could talk about God in public school. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't here having it at all. He was like,
you see, there's a problem with old boomers like Dershowitz, and my parents are like this to some extent, and so are like most of the older generation I know. They're adamant that church and state should not be mixed. They just don't understand how to define church anymore. Because when you look at what's going on in the public school system nowadays, church is LGBT. Church is BLM. Like, these things are religious matters at this point. And
Totally.
the same way that you would have a moment of silence for God in the morning in a school, they have a moment of silence where they take a knee for Black Lives Matter, or they salute a lesbian gay flag, or like their tenets of religion are exactly the same as a religion more traditionally defined. So
Right.
yes, like Dershowitz would be the first to say, oh yeah, there shouldn't be any religion in school, but at the same time he's not willing to acknowledge what is in
Not true.
school.
Not true. He said very specifically that he's against all those things, all of those, equality and gender and all that stuff. He doesn't want any of it in schools. But, go tell people that they can have Black Lives Matter in school and LGBTQ in school. You know what the reaction is going to be. So, terrorism. So at the end of the day, we don't have faith, and we have the left agenda. So, at least we should have faith. I don't know. It feels like a fight worth fighting, but
It's a fight worth fighting in that if you're willing to put everything on the same level ground, then yes. Like, as I said, like if you said, okay, tomorrow we're going to institute a moment of silence for God in the beginning of every school day, Dershowitz would fight against it with all that he's got, right? But he's not going to put that same amount of energy into stopping them taking a knee for the American flag for Black Lives Matter. Because he'll just say, I'm against it.
right,
You
right.
know,
Because he's, he'll let it slide.
because he doesn't
It's a
see
very
it
good
as a
argument.
religious thing.
Well, I don't know, because I think he's just out of touch. Because I told him, I'm like, if you think that this gender issue, he's like, it's not, they're not. Because I said it's like that's what they're busy with in the schools. He's like, it's not true. I said it is true. I take in more Twitter than Alan Dershowitz does, and I could tell you that in every fourth public school in this country, in America, there's some sort of activist situation going on. A flag, classes, active, literally activism in the schools. So I think he's out of touch. I
I
do.
think it
I'm
could be
not saying we
very
should bring God into the schools, but still.
well. First, I mean, granted, I don't. My kids don't use public schools anyway. But if they did,
What kind of schools do they go to?
my kids go to Jewish day schools. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean,
Welcome.
in my opinion, if you were trying to have a moment of silence in the beginning of every school day, why do you have to define it as anything? Why can't it just be a moment of silence? Why
Right.
can't it be a
So that
time where if you're for, whatever cause you're for, have a moment of silence and think about it. If you're for God, have a
hmm
moment of silence and think about it. I don't understand why a moment of silence has to be defined as a religious right, whereas anything the left pushes doesn't have to be defined as anything.
Right. And you could say God. You could say, if you want to think about God, think about God. Amazing. If you want to think about three gods, think about three gods. If you
Hmm.
want to think about the Buddhist on your mother's kitchen windowsill, think about that. You know what I mean? Like anything goes, but at least give the kids a chance to recognize that something is greater than them and that they are all equal. At least, every religion believes that all humans are the same. Ultimately, at the purest level of the religion, all human beings are equal and created under God. So if every single child could take a minute and just feel humbled by the fact that, they're part of something bigger than themselves, they'll treat each other better. And if we just completely ignore that, then the kids grow up missing any connection to anything greater than them. All they have is their phones and drugs.
I mean, don't even get me started on the phones. That's one of those
Oh,
things. Like I always talk about in Israel that at least the ultra orthodox are on the right track. Like they may be kind of hypocrites on the subject because I know just as many ultra orthodox that have smartphones as have the little kosher phones, but at least they're willing to acknowledge that it's a problem. You know,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Listen, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And any parent that has it under control, good for them. And any parent that doesn't, well, you're not alone.
hmm. Well, I always say that
Yeah.
if humanity survives another 1,000 years, and they're looking back through the history books at our time, and they're going to say, "Wow, mankind almost destroyed itself, and this was the reason why," and they're going to hold up a cell phone, and they're going to say,
Yeah.
like, this is what let people start hating each other. This is when people like lost the ability to relate to other human beings who disagreed with them, and it
You,
almost
you
destroyed us.
you think the world became a more dangerous place because of social media?
I think the world became a much more dangerous place because of social media. So I I
And
I I don't
you,
think social media has almost any value whatsoever. Like, look, I use it as much as anyone else, but I think that for society, it has zero value.
oh wow. Oh wow. If that's the case, we're really screwed.
I mean, it's
Oh
it's true.
God.
Think about. I mean, just think about this. When we were kids, right? If someone said something to you that you didn't like, and you responded back with the way that people do on social media, people would punch you in the face. Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's what would have happened. But now
I have
people are free to
I've
speak
made
without
yeah.
consequence.
I've made friends with people and become their enemies without ever actually meeting them.
Right.
Many people. Oh, it's crazy.
You know, it's I have no problem with increasing methods of information for people. I think it's better like people like a friend of mine talking about the printing press. The printing press gave people, the everyday people, the ability to read the Bible or to read whatever it is that they wanted. But there was still a level of scarcity to information. Now
hmm
there's so much information you can't ever believe what's true or what's not true.
Oh,
No
and it's
one
catered
care.
to it's catered to your feed. It's
Right.
literally curated for you.
Like, I mean, the same algorithms that tell you what you should be shopping for and, where you want to take a vacation are the same algorithms that are telling you what to read for news, what to follow in terms of friends, and
And what to think.
right. And they're putting you into a kind of an echo chamber where you're incapable of seeing what the other side wants or even cares about. So you're only capable of seeing enemies and friends. That's it.
Well, was this? I mean, listen. We on the one hand, depends who you talk to. Conspiracy theorists will tell you that this was the agenda from the beginning, and they've succeeded.
Hmm.
or it's just a sad twist of, twist of the tale. Like the whole world was going great, and then somebody made an iPhone, and then it was all over. You know what I mean? Um, it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely so. Like you might have a point, because essentially, if I didn't have a phone in my hand and I wasn't on Twitter, I wouldn't feel anxiety today. There were no sirens in Beit Shemesh. Sure, I saw what happened in Yerushalayim on Shabbos, but it didn't affect my day to day life. But when you're on Twitter, it just everything coming at you is so violent and aggressive and premeditated, and it just I'm on edge. I'm uneasy.
There was a time where I had gotten kicked off Twitter for like the 15th or 20th time. I don't even remember at this point. And I just said I'm done. And I deleted all the social media apps from my phone. I shut them all down online, and I just said I'm just not doing this anymore. And I went like a few months where I had nothing to do with social media. And I have such like positive memories of those few months. Like, because I wasn't constantly like checking what's going on in the world or reading about, you know, what who's bombing who, or who's pissed at who, or what political thing is going on. I just noticed I started caring about things that weren't social media a lot more. I started wanting to get into more like kind of, physical real world things, and I'm still upset with myself that I went back to it.
Yeah, sometimes my friends who are not online, and I have plenty of friends who are not online.
Hmm.
It's like I envy them. I literally envy them. They just don't have a clue, and they're just like blissfully unaware, and all the more happy for it.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
and when you tell them, "Oh, did you hear that so and so said so and so to so and so and
they're
now
like,
there's
who
this big
cares?
stink?" They're like, "Yeah, I don't care about any of that stuff."
Totally. And you know what? It's a reality check every time.
Yeah.
It is, but I don't know. We can't get away. It's ridiculous. Listen, at the end of the day, there have to be people that are, churning the cycle of news that keeps the world ticking and the stock market booming, and war is a business. And, there's so many things happening and so many reasons why people want to interact and make things, you know, happen. Um, but there's a lot of bad players, a lot of bad players, a lot of terrible people out there. So
Hmm.
yeah, social media is a scary place because of that. But you probably know more than I do. I don't engage with trolls. I just block them.
I,
But
I,
yeah.
I, I go through my periods where sometimes I just block anything I don't like. Sometimes I engage. It depends on the mood I'm in, to tell you the truth.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I don't want to expose myself to things like that. Listen, I try to filter myself. I try to remember, like, I am a religious Jew, a God-fearing Jew, an Orthodox Jew, a Chabad Jew. And, certain things are just beneath my dignity.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm not a fan of Libs of TikTok. I just think it's beneath a woman's dignity to be busy with sexual perversity 24 hours a day.
Well, it's also a good way to completely fuck up your head. Like, I mean, it'll get to the point where you can't go to sleep without like seeing the evil boogeyman around the corner, and
Seeing a
then you're no
dildo,
better than them.
yeah, seeing a dildo and a drag queen. I
Hmm.
don't know. The whole thing is, and I think that's what, and I thought about it so many times. Like, what is it about her or what she's doing that's bothering me? And I couldn't put my finger on it. I really couldn't, because I'm like, I guess it makes sense. Like, she's getting people fired, and it's drawing attention to something that's a problem. I get what she's doing, but just because something is right doesn't mean like you have a right.
Hmm.
So just because what she's doing is right doesn't mean like she needs to do it.
Which doesn't mean she needs to do it. I mean, like other people could do it, but if it's just gonna like basically put you in hell, then it doesn't matter if you've helped the world a little bit. Like when all is said
Right.
and
I
done, if you're
know.
watching the world from hell, then what have you really accomplished?
I know. And you look at her, she's an Orthodox Jew, supposedly, and now she's doing this whole press tour with all these like, Tim Cast and all these. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even listen to their podcasts. But she's doing the whole right wing media tour, podcast tour. And I'm like, that's a pretty seedy world for a from girl. Like, it's a little strange company she's been keeping.
Yeah, I can hear that. That's definitely true. I mean, but then again, they're just weird people to begin with.
Yeah, but now she's busy with weird people. Congratulations, transvestites and weird people.
I know, I
Amazing.
know. That's what she's doing. Well,
You
we've
know?
run out of time for my hour. I only do my show for an hour on weekdays or weekends. So
it was really a pleasure.
I really enjoyed. Anytime you want to come back and talk, you have a topic you want to bring up, just give me a shout out, and I'll be happy to have you back. It's been a really great time.
Thank you. This is a safe space for me. I could say what I want.
Anytime, anything you want. Anything you want.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Follow her, please,
Take care.
at Chanale Music on Twitter.
On Twitter.
And what was the name of your podcast? I don't.
Weekly Squeeze podcast. Weekly Squeeze.
I keep wanting to call it the Weekly Schmooze. That's why I knew I had to. I wasn't going to say it right. Thanks.
It's kind of the Weekly Squeeze. It's kind of the Weekly Schmooze. Take care now.
No problem. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll talk soon.
My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis